Welcome to the People's Guild with me, Wasco, and my co-host, B. Jangles.
We're a couple of Splinterlanders that love exploring all things Praetoria with a wide variety of guests from all across the community and Splinterlands universe.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode. This week, I am joined by two wonderful guests, two of my good in-game buddies, both of which have appeared on the podcast several times throughout the existence of the People's Guild. So we've got ex-guildie buddy Hepthorn and my good buddy Darkestnyte. Welcome to the show, fellas. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This is my third time on here, I guess. If I get two more, do you guys give me one of those jackets like you get in SNL if you're the 5-5 timer?
Yeah, you've got to put on a stellar performance there in that one, Hep. We'll
okay. Well, for the fifth one, that's when I'll really bring out the big guns. Yeah. No, thanks for having me on. I guess it's an honor to be on here with Darkestnyte. Last time you were on the pod, I listened to that episode and you probably talked me into or helped me make the right decision in buying the best asset I ever bought in Splinterlands, I think.
What's that?
So my Lux Vega. Lux Vega. I mean,
yeah,
you're so right, man. I was on the fence. And it's a funny story because then I was like, I was on the fence and I heard that and I was like, he's so right. He makes so much. There's so many people who were kind of poo-pooing the card, saying it's not that great. And I had always, I'm a big death guy as well. And I was always kind of saying, the best legendary summoner for death would just be Kella, just give me like a little bit more speed and one shield. Yep. So I'm like, Lux, you get that. And all you're talking about how you could play it with, delegate to someone, you could play it with anything, anywhere. But yes, I was like, all right, I got to get it. I listened to it like right before the sale kind of went on. I was like, all right, I got to get this card. I couldn't get, like my money, like some fiat into crypto in time. I didn't want to sell off some other stuff. So I couldn't do it in time. Like I just missed it by like a few hours and it sold out. And I was like, so I rented it for a little bit and, the rental price just kept going up and up. Your rental just kept getting canceled. It was so hard. I was like, forget it. I'm spending the money. And yeah, I mean, it was, it was way more than I wanted to spend, but man, it was worth it. And now that's, it's almost doubled in value since then. So yeah,
awesome. It's literally like the single best card because you can do so much with it, and really it's its versatility. And I'll tell you, I think I might have said this back then. It's like the just as good as Archmage Arius was back in the day. And even Matt said that when we were at Splinterfest, right? He's like, look, this card's going to be just as good as Archmage Arius, if not better, because it's neutral. And he did not joke, right? It's everywhere. We're doing brawls right now, and it's one of the cards we have to have banned, right? Because it's just oppressive, right? And it just adds so much to so many different splinters, right? So yeah, like congratulations, man. That's absolutely
thank you.
awesome.
Yeah.
I love when guests come onto the podcast and they can generate some FOMO. So well done. Well done, Darkestnyte.
Dude, that's not FOMO, man. Like that's a must-have card. Oh wait, that is FOMO. Never mind.
Well, you saw the writing on the wall well before the community. Well, I mean, you also had, I guess, the benefit of foresight with the conversations that were taking place at Splinterfest, and kind of got to hear Matt hype it up on, a little bit more intimate level than everybody else. But to Hep's point, I checked the market for Lux Vega a couple of days ago. We were talking about it in the guild, and I think she was trading for damn near $2,000 for a max copy, which is, we're almost in kitty money. And we were talking about what happens when Untamed shifts to Wild to somebody like Lux Vega. And the general consensus is that value is just going to continue to push towards the moon.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those cards. Again, it's the versatility, right? So if you're a new player coming into the game, the reality is, I mean, you got the thing that stops most of us is summoners, right? Well, what do you get with Lux Vega, right? You get a summoner that you can use in any splinter, right? So as long as you have Lux Vega, and it's not blocked by a rule set, you have, the ability to field a fully functional and competitive Splinter team, right? So it just allows you that versatility is super, super important. And it's funny because when you look at some of the stats on all these different tools out there, Lux Vega is probably one of the most winning cards, right? It's definitely for the summoners, right? But it just overall, it's one of the top cards that really generates a win.
Well, I
Yeah.
think go ahead.
Yeah, I play it all the time.
Yeah.
I have a lot of success with it. It's funny. I was looking at, card prices have kind of dropped, and I'm always kind of checking out. And I was like looking at the price of, I play in gold. So I was looking at the price of like a level 6 Lorna. And I was like, that's starting to get really attractive. That's coming down. And then I was like, I'm only going to use it if it's, a little league rule set, because otherwise I'm just going to use my Lux Vega. You know what I mean? I'd rather the Divine Shield is, not that much better than Lux's Shield. Not give me the health and the speed bump. So.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, right? So you, because the prices are dropping, and you already own one of the most sought after cards, this is an opportunity, right? So to get a Lorna for, what is that? I think $300 or so now. Like it's dropped so much. I don't even know what it is right now. But I know it's very affordable, right? So now you combine your collection with Lux plus Lorna, who's another very winning, very much a winning card. Maybe you get a few of the other cards that are just really dropping in price and just kind of flesh out your collection. So I love when prices drop, right? Like, I'm not a investor per se, so I don't really expect to sell any of my cards. I don't care if they, drop 90%. What that represents to me is an opportunity to buy some competitive cards to, on the cheap, right? So.
Yeah, I'm curious, Darkestnyte. So we've seen pretty much everything with I think for a really long time, Rift Watchers was kind of the exception to the rule. We hadn't seen prices start to drop there, but in the recent few weeks, we've seen prices across the board start to come back down. How have you been navigating the market? What do you kind of got your eyes on?
Man, I wish I could tell you that I was looking to buy something, but I've already bought it all, right? So as the price came down, everything that I want is kind of there. So there's a few common cards from Rift Watchers I want to get. But really, I mean, I'll be honest, right? My focus has been around promo cards, right? The team has, committed to doing one per quarter. And, if I don't need to really buy a whole lot of new cards, from past sets, I can just focus on the promos. So I did pick up Ruse, right? That was a good pickup. I did get, oh my God, am I going to
Zero?
Yeah, here we go. So I got Zerial. I mean, it was expensive, right? But I didn't have anything on my list, so I went and got it. And Zerial's like crazy, right? You and I played with her, when we do our challenges. And it's a great, fantastic card as long as you have all the other stuff. So to answer your question directly, right? If I didn't have like Alamo Cambio and a maxed out, Chaos Agent, those are probably the cards that I would look to pick up on the cheap for sure. But I got them, so. So I'm not going to buy anything.
Yeah, how are you? We've faced off a handful of times with Zerial. Have you started working her into your ranked play, or are you still kind of trying to figure out what is the meta to play best with her, and what is your kind of general sentiment towards the card at the moment?
So full disclosure, with the current environment, right? I'm going to say meta environment. It's a lot of botting out there, right? So the reality is the bots don't know how to use Zerial yet. And I don't think they're gonna for a long time, right? Like, I think they'll start gaining data, but the combination of, not a lot of people with the card, right? So I think that's a thing at the higher levels. And the lack of really the winning combinations, I don't think it's anything you're going to see there, right? So I'm saying that only to say that that's a reality of our environment right now, right? Is how to interact with bots and things like that. So, I bought on some accounts, right? And I'll tell you, just for quality of life, that's kind of the direction I've gone. So once the anti-bot initiative goes live, then I think I'll be able to better answer that question, right? Because I'm looking forward to that, right? I'm looking forward to going into Modern and going back into the lab and getting really good, right? But I don't think that time is quite there yet. One, did that answer your question? Yeah, okay. So it's TBD, right? It's really just TBD. I love the card. I love the lore on it. I mean, that lore, that's my thing, right? Is I love lore, and that lore is long, right? It's like super, super detailed. And I like that, right?
Yeah, I'm curious if somebody like Siler at Xbot or Proton and the guys over at Archmage, if they look at how the abilities interact versus the card to sort of expedite the bot trading, so to speak. You know what I mean? So, we have other weapons trainers who offer comparable stats to Zerial. Obviously, it's not going to be identical, but if you can kind of swap out, I forget the card's name, but I think it's the Dragon Legendary that is a ranged weapons trainer. So
yes, that's Sky. Yeah, I remember that. I'm looking it up now. So, and that's a great card, right? Like, at least I think it's a great card. So, but Barrick's Snake Eye.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. So that's a good looking card. I mean, it has a True Strike. It has a press. I mean, man. Void armor and weapons training, right? And that's at level 3 with 3 damage. So I think once people start getting that card and getting it maxed out, I think you're going to start seeing it everywhere. I really do.
Yeah, but my
that card. Sorry, jump in. I just played that card for the first time. I think yesterday. I've had a level 2 for a little while, and I'm like, this card is great. I just couldn't really figure out how to work it in. And yesterday I had a rule set. I forget exactly what the rule set was, but I worked it in with like a Bacteria in my back row, and it worked out beautifully for me. Yeah.
Oh man, the weapons trainers. I feel like I've long felt that Bacteria Hep. I know we've talked about this at length. Bacteria has always been a stud in the Chaos Legion lineup, and with the advent of weapons training and the cards that they keep rolling out, Lily is another great value add to somebody like Bacteria. I think long term, the whale is going to be that's going to be the white whale of Chaos Legion. I have a sneaky suspicion that's going to be the long term play for most sought after legendary cards.
I think
I own a few BCX of that for sure.
So Hep, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So you are starting to dig into weapons trading. Like, what do you think are the must-have cards around for weapons training? Like,
so
what you're looking for?
I don't have one for death yet. I can use that Ferrix, I guess. But the thing I really love right now to do is and so you can't use the Ferrix for it because I love to play Astral Entity with my Rift Wing in the last spot as a sneak protect. And then because you play that with a blind and the thing is almost unhittable. So I really want to get like the weapons training for with death, and I don't have that card yet. I don't even know what that card is. So that's what I'm really looking for. It's it's helpful, I think, in scatter shot rule sets too, where you maybe want to play one of your non-weapon tanks in the middle of your lineup, and then you can give that a weapon ability. That's great. Trying to think of where else I've seen it used. I haven't seen it used other places too much yet. It's one of those things where I bet you're seeing it a lot more in silver, because I feel like silver is probably that sweet spot where you can still play your level 1 or level 2 cards that have it. I play in gold, but I get diamond, end of season chests. And because I try to hit the leaderboard in wild, and I typically bounce up to diamond in modern at the end of the season. I'm not seeing it played that much in gold. And I think we're probably that group of people it's going to take a while to get that level up because we're just not getting a ton of those cards with it in the rewards chests.
So just to kind of just to validate that a little bit. So what I heard you say was really you want to combine the evasiveness, right? Because I think you said, Rift Wing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you can give it an attack. So, I mean, how many times have we fought a battle where you're just missing over over and over again. But now instead of just missing, right, and getting the
Backfire,
backlash, now you're able to actually do some offense too and really just do additional damage. I mean, that's the thing that I think is going to really really be in the meta, right? You if you miss, you're taking damage. If you get hit, you're taking damage. Like, you're taking damage all over the place, right? And I think it's a I'm going to use a term. It's like a force multiplier, right? Like, for being able to really maximize that damage while your opponent is struggling, right? Like, they're struggling to hit you, and every time they miss, like, it punishes them. So
yeah, something I'm curious to see how it pans out. I'm a big fan of the sniper play, and we haven't had a whole. It kind of feels like, you know, ever since the daily quest change, and you don't have that sneak snipe rule set or kind of daily focus. I feel like you don't come across a snipe led team all that often. We have had a couple of good snipers come back into the mix, but the sniper rule set is one that I think is perfect for the weapons trainers, because it removes your healer from being snipe fodder, right? Yeah. So if you could toss the Guardian and a Bacteria around, you know, that dragon guy, or around, you know, in an opportunity rule set, you've got the Kulu Mastermind, and all of a sudden your sniper fodder is now able to go on the offensive and avoid the snipes. That's something I'm looking forward to see how it pans out. I've got my bets hedged. I'm really hoping for Rebellion to bring out a whole new era of sniper squads. I feel like we've kind of missed the boat on that a little bit. I'd love to see that kind of come back into the meta in a big way.
Wouldn't that be crazy? So cards like, so for sniper protection, then, right, you're looking at cards like, again, Almo Cambio is one of my favorites, but not just that one, right? It's
Conjurer.
The Conjurer, right? That's a good cheap one, right? For now, like, if you don't have a maxed out one, this is definitely the time to get it. But then you have the Obsidian Sentinel, right? That's in modern right now.
Yep.
Right. So, and that has, if I remember correctly, that has range reflect, right? So you'll take damage from range, but then it is also the Lord Arianthus, right, for wild, right, which is another good one. It's actually the counter, but it has magic reflect, right? So now imagine those cards, which are reflecting damage back, add on a little bit of amplify. Oh man, got amplify. Now you have they're doing damage. And
I think both of those cards have shield. Yeah.
Have shield. So that's the counter to what you're hoping happens, right? Which is the sniper, right? So this is definitely an arms race, right? This is like totally an arms race to figure out how we're going to handle a potential meta change with Rebellion, which I hope you're right? I hope it does bring a whole bunch of just some of those rule sets like sniper in there.
You know, I haven't looked that far down the road for Rebellion. Like, what, how is it going to change, the meta? One thing, I was talking with someone about the other day that I would love to see, because we were talking about martyrdom and cards. Someone asking, is Ruse worth getting? And I was like, absolutely, yes. But, I would love to see them do something like, say, after Rebellion, there is not going to be martyrdom in cards. Maybe that you can say we'll reserve it for maybe a promo card in the future. But I'd love to see them, what I would love to see them do from, not only a gameplay standard, but from an asset owner position, is start announcing that you're taking away abilities from future cards in future sets, right? Because that's going to raise, and I think martyrdom's a really cool one. We just got it. It's can be used very effectively, used a lot. I mean, like sniper rule sets, like I'm throwing my mouse rack guy or whatever he's called, in that position, and just let him get killed, and then just go about my business. And you see a lot of people doing that, and so I'd love to see them say, what, like, this was a really cool ability. It's pretty powerful. It was going to be in the the soulbound rewards cards is going to be in Rebellion, and then it's going to be gone. And then people will start saying, "Whoa, the values of those cards that have it, are going to go up a lot." So yeah.
So you're actually mentioned something very interesting, right? So I've been hearing from guildies that the martyrdom is really ridiculous. Like martyrdom with the resurrection is like too much, right? So like, do you agree with that?
I feel like even though the update came out, I've only played a handful of Resurrect rule sets, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do. I did the first couple ones. I did try to do something with martyrdom, and it didn't really work out the way I thought it would. It didn't work out as well as I thought it would. And the last couple ones I've gotten, I had one earlier today, and I was like, I'm just gonna play this straight up, like that isn't even there. And I had much more success with it. So, and I can see, and I can see how, if you have a bunch of resurrects, and that self-resurrect, it can get out of control when you've got, these huge damages. But you know what? That's why they make phase shield too, Yeah.
And I think also they recently adjusted Dispel, right? Yeah, so that removes the martyr, that removes bloodlust. Yep. And I feel like that's a great equalizer. For the longest time, I completely ignored Dispel. I whether a card had it or not, I didn't care. But now, you play Jared Scar and you get him a couple of bloodlust, and all of a sudden, one damage from somebody like or 2 damage from somebody like a spirit hoarder, and all of a sudden your Jared Scar is back to being a peon.
Yep. So dude, you nailed it with the spirit hoarder. So I didn't know that it was going to be the spell that was going to be the card. But when I looked at spirit hoarder, man, I was like, this card is too good. And really it was because of the blind, right? So now you have blind, and now dispel has real value. And it's just outrageous, right? Like it's one of my favorites. Like at 3 mana, it has to be in my lineup, right? If I can find a way to effectively put it in my lineup, it's in there, right? And anytime it hits a card with Dispel, and I see a line of buffs just drop off, I'm like, I got full value on that card. Yeah, it's a good one.
And I think oh, go ahead.
No, and not even that one, right? There's a neutral card. Oh man, what's that neutral card?
I'm trying to look it up right now. I knew this would come up.
Yeah.
Is it the Spellsmith?
Spellsmith. Yeah, like Spellsmith. Like that card was a trash neutral, just trash card that no one really wanted, and now it has value, right? Now it has straight value, and who would have thought that? Right. So this game continuously does that, right? You have a trash card, you're like, oh, it's a couple of pennies, and then all of a sudden a rule set change happens, a new card is introduced, and now it grows in value. So you want to talk about FOMO? That's the card, right? Like if it's still cheap, get it, right? Get it while it's cheap, right? And then so when Rebellion comes out and it's still modern, and you have your an excellent card, I mean, this is the time to get this stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, I think to kind of further toss the poo-poo on the Spellsmith, I would only use that guy for the redemption. If I was coming up to a Divine Shield match or something like that, I would just toss him in the front as fodder to rid the rest of the team of Divine Shield. But now, he's got a nice little kit with the Amplify is a great play. Sometimes it was always the Weirding Warrior over the Spellsmith for me. But having the value add to something like Dispel, that it makes you second guess yourself. Do I go with the Weirding Warrior, or is the Spellsmith the right play here?
And it's funny. I could tell that you do that when we play. Like you're really thinking about like, damn, this guy's going to come at me with this, so I got to counter with that. Like this is what the game is supposed to be, right? Like this is really what it is. Like you take into account your opponent, and we play a lot, right? So like, chances are, oh, Darkestnyte's going to play this. And I'm like, man, Jangles is going to play this. So like, how do I win this match? And again, it's not for any rewards, right? So it's totally for like, hey, I just one upped you, right? So
who gets to toss Yeah, who gets to toss the better gif at the end of this round is what it's really about.
Exactly. And those are the things, so I'll be honest with you, right? And maybe this is the same for you. Like I discovered Splinterlands because I love playing Magic the Gathering, right? But they were just, and then again, they had their little bit of a decline, right? I got pissed off because cards were getting banned left and right. And I was like, man, this sucks. And so I started looking for something else. But I have that same feeling, like when I play you and Tails and Aftersound and Hawks, like I know you guys, right? And it feels good to have that same feeling of Magic the Gathering. Like, yes, I'm a good player and I have a good deck and I love this game. And it just feels really, really good. So anyway, I know if you feel the same way about that, but that's the thing that keeps me going.
Yeah, for sure. I say this. I think I said this before too, and it was on the pod. Is like I love, that juice of when you're like you can't see the person's name, but you look at like the cards they played, and you're like, especially because like me, so especially towards the end of the season, I'll get up there in gold, and I'll be like, oh, that's gonna be Hell Slash, or that's gonna be or it's gonna be somebody like they're coming, but then every once in a while, for me, like I don't have those cards, but like I can steal a win off of one of those guys. And I'm like, that's great. That's the juice. That's what I love, man. What I love about the game. Yeah.
So you mentioned Hell Slash. So I was at a tournament with them yesterday, and I turned on. So I love the community, right? So I feel it's important to help out wherever I can. So you guys are the ones that told me, hey man, there's you can turn on your account to be if in practice mode. So I did. And Hell Slash was like hitting my account like super hard. And I'm like, man, this guy's really on me. And then I looked at the tournament I was playing, and I was like the next guy that he was playing.
Oh,
and I was like, I said, I see what's going on here. And I was like, okay, get your practice in. And but I ended up winning, right? And I was shocked, right? Because I mean, he had full advantage. But it doesn't matter, right? Like you're head to head with another player, and it just, mind against mind, deck against deck, and it just feels like really, really good. Now, if he had won, I'd have been like, oh, well, fine. He did his intelligence and he did what he needed to do. But the fact that he did his intelligence and I was still able to overcome was like the best feeling ever. Like I could have lost every other match, but as long as I'd won that one, I would have felt great.
That's such an interesting twist on the practice mode. I hadn't considered that. I'd considered like brawl reconnaissance. You hop in, you see what your opponent's got in their collection, but the practice mode stuff with XBot and shout out to Siler and Co for what a cool tool, man. I was telling Hep before you hopped on, I woke up this morning and I had 10 battles from Darkestnyte waiting in my queue.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome.
It's so much fun, man. It's so much fun. And that's something that I listened to the podcast that you hopped on for a few months ago, Darkestnyte, again this morning. And that's one of the things that we were talking about. So it's really coincidental timing that we get you back on. That was one. Lux Vega was another one. And we've kind of seen that. And the last one I definitely want to touch on with you is the ECR change, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But the practice mode stuff that's exactly what we've been calling for, and it's a little bit disappointing that it didn't come built in house, but it's the next best thing, and it's such a great tool. I know, speaking from personal experience, I've abused the heck out of the practice bot. It's just, I don't have to ask one of my buddies, are you cool for a challenge? I just hop on to XBot's site, see which collections are active, and I can play until the cows come home with some of the best decks in the game. When it first came out, I actually challenged immediately as soon as I saw it. I challenged Siler's, I think it's Splinter Bank is what he had listed as the diamond level deck. And I was faced with like level 2 summoner, and it was just not up to snuff, So I said, we got to get you some leveled up cards. Well, within like 10 minutes, he was like, let me know if you want your collection to be able to be active on the XBot practice site. And all of a sudden there's, 15, 20 of the biggest names in the game that are actively, quote unquote, delegating their collections to be available for practice dummies. It's great, man.
it was so cool because I remember when you first reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, you can get your deck out there," and I was like, "What? Like, no, what? Like, no, like that's impossible." And then I reached out to Siler, same thing, man. 5 minutes later, my deck was out there. I turned it on, and you again, you and I play a lot. Like in the mornings, we'll say, "Hey, man, shoot me a couple of challenges." I love doing that, right? And I do it with other people too. And so I think we're going to see over time this is going to grow, right? I don't see any way it can't, right? Because we all want to be there to help each other get better and understand what cards we need and just play within the community. So he did a great job by doing this. And this is something that should have been done a long time ago. I really think it should have been. And we talked about it almost a year ago, right?
Yeah.
So have you tried it out?
I haven't. Jangles and I were he was showing it to me. Was that last night or the night before? Maybe we were just talking the other day. I haven't had a chance. So yeah, I definitely want to check it out. It looks like it's a lot of fun. So.
To quote Ferris Bueller, it is so choice.
Great movie, great quote, Darkestnyte. Yeah, I think there is some room for some improvement, something that I would really like to see in the challenge realm, and this is, you know, not tossing shade on the team, but it was a missed opportunity, and it was clear, you know, challenges we've had Modern and Wild for the better part of the last 12 months now, right? And it's clear that the challenge function hasn't gotten any love since well before that, because now it's either a Wild or nothing, you know, and that comes to bite me in the butt when I play somebody like you, and all of a sudden I've got a Kraken in my face.
Exactly. But that's
the
thing, right? Yeah, it should have been a missed opportunity, right? Like again, I get that they have priorities, right? Like they have priorities, but at the end of the day, I'm thankful for the community that they say, "Hey, you know what? This is a thing that we need." Rather than waiting for the team to do it, they just code it up themselves, right? This is the time I think for anyone that's in the community that says, "Hey, I want to learn coding." I think Luke is learning coding right now, right? And I mean, he's doing his thing, and when he's done with his coding, there's going to be opportunities for him to make something that he feels passionate about, right? And so Siler felt passionate about this. He made an awesome, make an awesome tool that it's generating money for him, right? Like, and so he's being rewarded for putting himself out there. So,
well, I think, you know, we had a couple guys in YGG, and I'm not going to name names, but there was a little bit of disappointment going around that the Splinterlands team didn't take up the mantle to revamp challenges. But, you know, my initial thought to kind of counter that was, you know, what if Peak Monster was never born to manage collections or rentals? What if Splex never came around to kind of, you know, offer a different approach to rentals that Peak Monsters is there? We'd be stuck with the in-game market, which is, you know, I don't have to tell you guys, I never buy cards from or rent cards from the in-game market. So it feels like that's, you know, I liken it to that sort of development, and maybe there is going to be some initial pushback, but long term, I feel like how can you not see that having these endless challenges available where, you know, we were talking about it last time, Darkestnyte, where you were on the fence about, you know, do I choose to play with my collection for the love of the game and put my ECR at sub 1% in perpetuity, or do I save my ECR and you know, still scratch that itch for the love of the game a little bit, but I still get my earnings? Well, now you can have your cake and eat it too. You can play all day with challenges and the ECR thing.
Yes. And so I think we wanted to talk about ECR, right? So I don't know if you know this, but when I was at Splinterlands, I was waiting in queue to ask Matt a question, and my question was going to be about ECR, right? So Matt and I had a bunch of interaction prior to me going to ask that question, right? So he said, you know, "Hey, Darkestnyte, you had a question. I know it was going to be a good one. Like, what do you got for me?" And I said, "Look, man, I want to play more, right? I want to play Splinterlands more, but I'm stopped by ECR and my desire to also earn." And he kind of looked at me and he's like, dude, like, you're smart enough to figure this out. Like, you don't have to play as much as that. But I said, I want to play, right? I want to play more. And he just looked at me and he said, look, a solution is coming. Maybe we overcompensated a little bit with the ECR. Trust me, we've already have a solution in place. And he said, I guarantee you're going to love it. And so basically 3 months later, 4 months later, we have the ECR change. And I literally, when I saw it, I said, this change was literally made for me. This is the thing that Matt was telling me was coming. And flawless execution, right? I can play as much as I want or as little as I want. And if I overplay, guess what? I get to buy more ECR, which is what I asked him for. I said, I want to be able to have more ECR. And I have to tell you, I think I have an ECR problem. Like, I buy a lot of ECR. In fact, I get pissed off when it's maxed out at 50 ECR per day. I'm like I want, like, why are you locking me away from this? And I know that wasn't the intention, and I know I have an ECR problem, right? And so, like, it's crazy, but I think they knocked that one out of the park. Right? I think they really knocked that one out of the park, and I feel satisfied. Like, I don't feel like I'm just, well, yes, I am throwing money out the window, but I feel good about it, right? It's the same thing as Weirdbeard saying, hey, Battle Pass, right? I feel like ECR purchase for me is Battle Pass. I play as much as I want, and sometimes I take a break. But like I said, I think it's probably one of the best changes that they've made, probably of all the changes that they've made, at least for me, right? And I love it.
Mm. So. What about you, Hep?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of sometimes trying to find time to be able to play more, to make sure I'm not hitting that 50. Yeah, it's just been with we just had my wife and I had a new baby. He's like 7 weeks old now, so my time has been a little tied up. Thank you. Yeah, with that, but yeah. So I mean, I'm still getting my battles in and stuff. But for me, I always like enjoyed. That's one thing I really liked about the game. Is that I can play in 1 or 2 increments, 1 or 2 battles. 5-minute increments. A few times a day, or play at night for like a half hour. And it felt like a good amount because I'm like, it puts me like right in that wheelhouse where I'm never really hitting 50. I'm never dropping too far below like 30 some or something like that. And I just kind of stay in that range and I play a little bit here and there. And, I try to get to, at least like 10 to 12, daily chests a day. And that's like a good point for me to play and be able to balance it out. So, yeah, I think if I had maybe a little more free time, I'd play more, but yeah, I haven't been, buying ECR. I'm still kind of right within that nice wheelhouse there.
So let me ask you a question about that. So, like, when you play during a season, like, what's your objective? Like, what do you try to accomplish, like, each season?
What do I try to accomplish? That's a good question. So
legendary gold foils, Darkestnyte. Come on, man.
No, I like to I try to hit the leaderboard in Wild.
Okay.
Before they did the rule changes, like added the new rule sets and put in the third, put in the 3 rule set match, I was doing pretty well in the top 20 pretty consistently. I didn't hit the leaderboard last season. The season before that, I think I got like 25th or 26th, and that's kind of where I've been. I have a deck that's like a mix of Modern and Wild. I don't have all the cards. I feel like those rule sets and the 3, having the 3 rule sets each match had made it more important to have a wider variety of cards, to be able to eke out those few other extra wins that kind of, put me either in, 34th or 22nd place. There's not a lot of wins in between those 2 positions. So I mean, so yeah, for me, like I'm looking to do that. And then in Modern's kind of like where I just bounce back, where I'm like, I try to be like, if I get like 1 or 2 losses in either Modern or Wild, I'll switch and I'll go to the other one. And I find like, okay, now I'm doing, I'll do well, and then I'll bounce back. And that's kind of like how I go back and forth. And yeah, I just like to, I like to try to get, into like 50 or 60 diamond chests a season, like I said, 10 to 15 reward chests a day, and just have fun playing the game. It's a fun little distraction for me, and that's kind of like what I use it, instead of like checking Twitter too much, or I don't have a Facebook account. I'm off Instagram now, so like I jump on Splinterlands, I play a couple games that, give myself a little break. And, it's kind of like, yeah, I just look at that day to day. Towards the end of the season, then I'll start being like, man, I got to really stress out about, if I'm trying to get on that leaderboard in Wild, man, it's really tough up there. And yeah, it's tough because you can be like, all right, I'm at like 25th and there's a day left. Like, is that going to be enough? Is my rating amount, do I think it's going to be enough to still be in the top 30? I don't know. Maybe I'll just do one more match, and then you lose that one. You're like, I got to try to grind back in. So, it becomes a little more intense there, but I'm pretty low key about it, I think. But like just very consistent, in playing every day like that.
Yeah. My big goal, Jangles, you already know what it is. As soon as my goal is to hit double champion 1 in both, right? And so again, I get what you're saying about the chest and the leaderboard, but for me, I just love sending that text or that Discord message, dude, I just made double champion, and I'm like running around the house, and I'm like, I call up after Sat, I'm like, dude, guess what? And he goes, yeah, I know you made double champion.
Yeah, I saw the Discord blast. I got the tweet.
Yeah, I saw the tweet. I saw it all. But it feels so good, right? Like, it feels so good. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm done for the season. And I'm like, delegate all my cards out. And I'm just like, I'll see you next season.
Nice. So is that the finish line for you? Just about every season, Darkestnyte is champ 1 on Wild, champ 1 on Modern, and then it's tossing the towel. Yeah. I wonder if I kind of employ a little bit of a similar strategy. So my deck is good enough to get me to champ 1 in Modern. I have to rent significantly to even sniff champ 2 in Wild. It's, man, you guys field some pretty tough collections over in Champ Wild. So it's a tall task for me to compete with you guys. But I wonder if our objectives, in retrospect, 6 months from now, when hopefully we've had Battle Pass enter into the mix, I wonder if, how are these objectives going to shift? I wonder if there's going to be, you've got to resurrect, 100 monsters throughout the course of the season. You've got to, trigger poison on 500 monsters. What is that stuff going to look like from a Battle Pass perspective, and achievements and skins and the cosmetic stuff that's all kind of waiting in the wings with Battle Pass. I'm really excited for Battle Pass. I hope that kind of, because it's fun to strive for champ every season, but I would love it if it was that in tandem with, you've got to tick off these other abilities being procced and along the way to achieve that stuff. Yeah, quests. Yes.
You want the side quest. Give me the
I want the side quests. Yes, bingo. That's it.
So I agree with you. I hope that after 6 months, being champ 1 in both is it's not a big deal to me, right? I would love to have a trophy room, right? That says all the stuff that you did, right? Done the impossible, won 10 games in a row with Waka, right? Like, that's near impossible. No one will ever have that achievement, right? But I would try for it, right? I tried to get it, right? Like there are things that we're familiar with from a gaming perspective, right? And we love to kind of, show off what we've accomplished, right? And I think with the community we have, I think that'll even be more important, right? What good is it to have an achievement if no one cares, right? But I think we would care, right? Like, I know that based on the research that I do, on people that I'm in tournaments with, I'm looking at their profile and I'm saying, okay, this is a serious player. Now I would go to their trophy room and say, oh man, this guy does work with Kitty, right? Like, so how do I counter with Kitty? And it's another strategy that I'm gonna have to work through, right? I want the difficulty, right? I want to have that arch nemesis, right? That said, like, this is the guy. Like, he just showed up you know, and we're battling now, and I'm like, damn it, right? Like, what do I do? How do I pull out all the stops, right? And that, I think that's the feeling that I think we all are really trying to go for. So.
Yeah, I would love to see kind of those, you know, to copy your term there, Hep, the side quests. I feel like ultimately it's great for the game from a pure gameplay perspective, but bigger picture, it's going to unlock new metas faster, right?
Yeah.
So if everybody's trying to achieve, you know, the 10 Waka quests in a row, all of a sudden we're going to be coming across Waka, and maybe we open up, you know, what was the hidden treasure map to the secret of Waka, right?
Exactly.
You know, I think we're all still waiting on that. I know I'm still waiting on that for Dallin. I do still like Dallin, despite both of you guys poo-pooing on Dallin.
Hey, man, I've won with Dallin, man. I've actually beaten you with Dallin. So
it happened once, right? It happened once.
I don't even know where my Dallin is right now, right? I have no idea where it is. It's somewhere.
Well, and to that point, we were challenging each other the other day, Darkestnyte, and I beat you with Dispa, and yeah. I think your response was, "Wow, I need to call her back." Yeah. And I've been using her a lot, and this is credit to the team for continuing to drive up the value for the cards that everybody's kind of just sleeping on, like ranged only. Lear Deep Swimmer all of a sudden is king. Magic only. I love playing Thispa, especially with, you know, if it's like magic only and enraged, boom, it's Thispa and you know, somebody fast up front, and all of a sudden you can't touch me. Yeah.
I think, I mean, again, they have done a great job when it comes to driving the value. You have to have a diversified deck now, right? You can specialize, right? But you're going to be at a definite disadvantage in terms of being versatile and being flexible, right? And using the intel that you've got, especially on tournaments, right? You can see what people's affinities are, and if you ignore those affinities, man, you're going to get hammered. So yeah, but to your point, Fispa, I haven't called her back yet, but I'm gonna. So so how are you guys doing on land? Like, what are you guys' thoughts about land? That's a big thing for me right now.
You go ahead first, Hep.
Yeah, sure. I, you know, had a very solid plan of how I was going to build up my cards and stack my DEC and, you know, grab some totems and get prepared for land. And then the price of cards plummeted, and now I'm like, oh man, I gotta buy some cards that I want to play with. You know what I mean? And so that's been really hard. But yeah, I actually have some, you know, I have some plots with Jangles and Waskel or in 102. I was able to pull a occupied, common occupied, and 2 common magics. And so I'm kind of thinking, you know, I'll try to, you know, make sure when land 1.5 goes live, I want to make sure I have enough, you know, people to work that to get whatever the bonuses you're going to get from, you know, either SPS mining or Secret of Praetoria research or whatever, to have them, you kind of focus on that, and then have enough to other people to have the grain to feed them, and just kind of then take it slowly from there. So yeah, I think land is going to be something that's going to slowly develop. I'm not, you know, in a rush really to have everything all in one place right now. And that's probably the, you know, financially, you know, the wrong move. I should probably be, you know, zigging, you know, when everybody else is zagging. But I mean, right now, just with the prices of cards, it's so hard for me not to want to put, you know, the resources I devote to Splinterlands into just getting the cards that I want and love to play with. So yeah, how about you?
So, well, I mean, so let me ask you a quick question before I jump to me.
Sure.
So you have some land. What do you have right now? Like, how much land do you have, and do you think you have enough?
I've got a baker's dozen. So I think I have enough. I kind of want, so we don't have any, we're in an area on our map that's like rivers and canyons. So we have some canyons, some calderas, and some rivers.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of want to be like, yeah, maybe I should pick up a couple forests or two just to be able to have some wood production down the line to be able to kind of try to balance it out a little bit more. So I think, but I think if I was to do that, I would probably sell off some of some of the plots, unless they, I bought so much because started buying it basically as soon as I got into the game.
Yeah.
I probably put more money towards land in the first 6 months of playing this game than I did towards cards. And I just thought that even it was higher back then when it wasn't anything too much higher, too crazy, but I just looked around at other like Web3 games that had sort of a land aspect, a land phase, and looked at the community we had, the number of people, and I was just like, land is so undervalued. I still think land is very undervalued. I think it's if the way they do it right. I always thought that because I'll be able to, like, even if I can't put cards on it, I'll be able to rent the land out so other people can do it. And I still hope they kind of like implement that, because I think I have too much land that I'm really willing to devote resources to working. But I don't think I'll sell anytime soon. I really want to see where it goes.
So I started out with 4 lands, right? So I bought 2 when I first started playing the game. So $20, right? There was no use case, there was no information. I actually bought it by accident, right? I was like, oh, well, am I supposed to buy land to play this game? Like, I knew nothing. And so I bought 2, and I'm like, it doesn't do anything. And so I forgot about it, right? Then I won, they were giving out mystery potions, right? So they were giving out land and mystery potions. So I won 2 more. And still, I'm like, man, I won some land, and like, what does this do? The interesting part is, I totally got bit by the land hype, right? So I had 4. I did an opening, I think for Walking Key's birthday party, right? We opened up some lands, and Area 51 and, Area 48. But interestingly enough, I started to realize that the land that we have is very much like real land, right? You're going to want land as a tier 1 asset, right? And it's going to do stuff, right? It's going to do stuff in the future. We may not have full visibility on it right now, but the reality is, I realized that I started thinking about land the same way I think about retirement property, right? And so I decided, I knew I needed to have a keep, right? So I waited, right? I waited, and I saw a keep, at a really ridiculously low price, and I purchased it. Then the weird part was, it just progressed from there, right? People were selling land in the same track that I was at, and it literally went in a line across to my keep. And I was like, what the heck just happened? Right? I went from 4 to, I think I have 19 lands now, all in the same area, all consolidated. And I'm like, how did that happen? Right? But it turned out to be great, because now I love the aesthetics of land, right? So I remember the day that they added sound to land, and I was surprised. I was like, what just happened? So so every morning I wake up and I walk the land, and I say, this is my farmland. And it feels like I really own property in something that I feel very strongly about. And I just love it, right? Whether or not it has use case now or later, I feel like I'm much more connected to the community through this land. And I absolutely love it. I don't care if it goes anywhere, right? Or it goes everywhere, right? I feel like I can come visit your guys' land at the People's Guild and say, I would love to see a guest book, right? That says, hey, Darkestnyte stopped by your land and, drank at your bar, right? Or at your tavern, right? Like, that would be super cool.
Yeah, I wonder, what depths has Matt thought through? How is the community really going to be able to come together for this stuff? Like, are we going to be able to throw a backyard barbecue at Darkestnyte's Keep? Like, that's what I want to do. Like, featuring After Sound on the bandstand. Like, get him up there singing some songs, and yeah,
Fantastic.
I'm really surprised. I'm with you, Hep. I'm surprised that prices have fallen as low as they have, and I think my prediction. Not financial advice. I don't know a whole lot about this sort of thing anyways, but so if anybody's listening and acts on this, but that's on you. But $50 a plot for to be a part of this land thing, it just feels like an absolute steal. You mentioned earlier Darkestnyte as this being an accumulation period. I'm surprised these plots are just camping out. I haven't been keeping an eye on the commons as much as I'd love to get my hands on, some occupied or some more magical land and kind of sink my teeth into that side of the land business. But 150,000 plots is not a lot, and I think when we're looking at 1.5 when it's officially rolled out, we're maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks away from that. I think we're going to be seeing a very different marketplace when people start to realize that land is significant, and I think a lot's going to be determined by what are the returns that can be made through this land. But then there's guys like the three of us who we just want a cool new fun aspect to play this game with, and if the tides do rise when they rise, so be it. Great, we made a great call, but we're going to have a fun time along the way anyways.
Yep. I think Hep said it best, right? You get a zig when everybody else is zagging, right? And this is the time, right? We see the prices dropping. I think people get anxious when they see that, right? Because there is a significant investment here. But at the end of the day, I think we all know what a good deal looks like, right? Because a year ago, people were paying $2,000 for a land that they didn't even know it was. Right. So now we know. And at the end of the day, I think we can look at it and say, you know what, $50 for land is a good deal. I mean, I don't think it's going to go much lower than that. I mean, it could go much lower than that, but I think people would snap them up. If I saw land for $40, I'm buying it. Like, I don't even care what it is. Right. I'm buying it. So, and again, I will maybe flip it to something else that I want in my region or my track. But at the end of the day, $40 land, $30 land. Like, what would you do if you saw $30 land, right? You'd be like, I'm getting that. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what's $30 in SPS right now? It's got to be like, I think like $50 in SPS would be like 2,500 SPS. You got to think that you can get that return on that in I don't know what the current rate they're doing it for now, but you got to be able to think you can get that in in a year, with what they're giving out in 2 years, and so the return on investment, if it's that cheap, it's kind of silly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the return is already happening, right? Every day that you're sitting on a surveyed piece of land, you're getting a chunk of SPS. It's not significant, but that times 365, we won't quite hit, maybe probably closer to 200 days at this point before 2.0 comes out. But you'll get a little bit of return before the real returns start. And then, who knows?
If you invested in the conventional market, right, market stocks or even other crypto, are you going to get the kind of returns over a year that we've been seeing? Probably not, right? I think that's one of the things, right? We see a bunch of negative sentiment, I think, in the community, but I often joke, right, that the reason why we see this kind of wave of negative sentiment, then euphoria, is you guys ever see the movie Willy? Of course you have. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Veruca Salt. Yeah, so Veruca Salt singing "I Want It Now." I want the whole world. And that defines, I think, the Splinterlands community, right? Like, we want it right now. Yes, I know that I invested, and I know a reasonable return on investment would be 2 to 5 years, but I want it in 2 to 5 months, and I want it right now. And when it doesn't happen, people become demoralized, right? And then I think they realize they're being ridiculous, and then the euphoria comes back. And then they get demoralized again, and it's almost predictable, the cycle. But it's sometimes when I see stuff like this, I'll sing that song on After Sounds stream, right? Because that's the reality, right? We want it right freaking now, and that's just not realistic. It's not realistic at all. So anyway, young investors, that's really what I chalk it up to.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people, and you think about it, even if it's just from a crypto perspective, but this happens in the traditional markets too, where, but people don't look at that stuff. Like you don't look at, your stock investments, if you have a 401k or equities or anything, right? You just see like, oh, over time it goes up. But yeah, it might go up, 10% over a year,
Yep.
but you might have got 9.5% of that growth in like 3 days. Right.
Yes.
But yeah, in the world here, like everybody wants that 3 days to be we want that
Every 3 days.
every week. Every week we want that 3 days where we get, like no, like that's not the way, that's not the way it's going to work. And when it does go, it goes big, and that's what people are like, oh, I'll do this, and then it's going to go big. But yeah, it might go big, but you might need to wait a while, wait a year or two, yeah.
What does Warren Buffett say? Like, make your investment and like go away, right? Like, don't think about it anymore. Like, don't watch the news. Just sit on it and just be happy, right? Go look at something else. Go read the newspaper. Go walk your dog, right? And then you come back in a couple of years and you're like, holy crap. I remember the first time I realized that I'd made significant gains in Splinterlands. One of my guildies said to me, he says, hey man, have you looked at your asset value in a while? And I was like, no, how do I do that? And I logged on to Peak Monsters and I was like, what just happened? Like, I had no idea that that was even a thing, right? I was playing a game. And, to go to such a significant gains when we had the bull run, right? I had no expectation that that was ever going to happen, but it happened. And I could get if you came into the game during that period, and you're looking at a return on your investment. But if you came before that and you spent, $20 for a Jotun, I mean, I never thought it would be more than that, right? Why would I think that, right? And it did, and it went crazy. Can that happen again? I think so, but you know, I think we'd have to have a perfect storm for it to happen. But I think the chance of that happening again is, greater than 0%. I mean, I don't, maybe it's 1%, right? Maybe it's 50%. I have no idea. But the possibility is there, right? And I think we all want that to happen. I think we all want to become rich from playing a video game.
Mm. Yeah, I'm curious. So we had a pretty big town hall with a few good announcements. We had Chatter on for the first time in a long while. So welcome back, Chatter. It's good to hear from you. And one of the big kind of talking points was what the Chibi Dinos partnership is bringing to the table. Number one, and number two, what does that represent bigger picture? And what does that mean for the Splinterlands team, the Splinterlands company? Darkestnyte, what are your thoughts on the Chibi Dino stuff? Have you given it much thought? Are you an NBA guy to begin with, or is this something that you're even remotely interested in?
So I'll be honest, right? Not really, right? Like, I like what I like. I like dragons and death splinters and stuff like that, so that's cool. But I do realize the value of diversification, right? So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, and I think that's important. I've talked with Walking Keys and the other guys, right, about this. I think we have different opinions about what this all means. And we're still trying to figure out whether it's good or bad. But here's the thing, right? If something happens to, say, Splinterlands, right, there are they've built out a platform that could be pretty lucrative long term, right? Very similar to Gala and all those guys. I think they're trying to do the same thing. Do I worry sometimes that they'll kind of leave Splinterlands behind and work on this new stuff? Sometimes, right? But every time I challenge someone to a game, I'm like, I would probably still play this regardless of what else they're doing, right? I have decks for Genesis, right? GLG, I have packs and I've opened up packs and stuff like that. I'll probably play it, but will I be as aggressive in terms of my consumption of those assets? Probably not. But I absolutely love tower defense, right? Like, I love tower defense, right? And I can't wait till it comes out, and I'll probably be just as heavy in tower defense as I am in Splinterlands, because it kind of fits the kind of entertainment that I like. So I think going forward, I think the name of the game is going to be, there's going to be something for everybody, right? If you're into, football, then you're going to play Genesis. If you're into dinosaurs, or I don't even know anything about it, right? But if you're into that thing, there's something for you. And as long as there's, that draw into the community, how can you go wrong?
Yeah, real quick, Hep, I want to hear your thoughts on that partnership and kind of what your take is on what that means longer term. But before we hear that, I when I was listening to Chatter talk about it, what came flashing back to my mind was when we first heard about the validator licenses and the nodes and what that means. And Matt, something that stuck with me was offering. Matt mentioned offering Splinterlands as a service and using kind of Splinterlands infrastructure and the way that it functions as a blueprint for future games. And I think this, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like this could be the first step into actually bringing that vision to fruition. And that's what excites me the most about this. I'm with you. I do follow the NBA, but I don't care about chibi dinos. But that said, the implication of what this partnership potentially could bring to the ecosystem, and it's like you hop into like Apple Arcade, or you walk into an arcade shop from thinking back to the 90s. You might go there for one game, but if it's occupied, you're going to go somewhere else and maybe discover a new game that you love, and that becomes your new go-to. And I think this sort of arcade approach could very well, present the digital age version of the arcade shop from the 90s, and all of a sudden Splinterlands could get, the spike in population that we're all hoping comes. What are your thoughts, Hep?
So I looked at some, YouTube videos of, I'm not sure, exactly. I haven't looked into Chibi Dinos that much at all, but I watched some, a couple of YouTube videos of people playing it or playing some beta versions. That's what I wasn't sure it was. It's like, oh, that actually kind of looks kind of fun. It seemed like it was kind of like a fun little game. But yeah, like kind of arcadey, where you're just, running around, shooting some hoops and stuff with a little dinosaur guy. I'm like, that could be cool. I can see how people would be into that. I don't think I would, invest in it like I invest in Splinterlands, but yeah, it seems like a fun little niche thing, and like I think that's awesome. From the Splinterlands perspective, it's tough. You hear like so many different things about people worried that the team is going to outgrow the game, or they're going to kind of leave Splinterlands behind and things like that. But just when I hear the team members talk, and not just on the town hall, but also, especially a lot in this podcast, like when you have a guy, like Nate on, and you just hear the way, like how much they care about the game, and how many of the people, who work on the team, have Splinterland assets and play the game and are very like almost like emotionally invested in the game, not just like, this is my job, I'm here to punch the clock and then get me out of here. I don't see them ever wanting to leave the game behind, right? And so if you can have these other projects that they're do, maybe Nate will now have to manage for 3 or 4 other projects, but I don't believe that he's ever gonna not care about Splinterlands. I just don't see that from them. And so from that perspective, I just think it's great that, hey, if they can get revenue from other places, then that makes me feel comfortable, because this game is not going to like die out and go away. I think, even if it's, us and the however many other people who, really care about this game from just like the gameplay perspective, as opposed to people who care about it more from like an and that's the thing too, is like the asset management and the dealing with rental cards and like figuring out how you can maximize your return on your investment by which card how you combine cards, rent them out different ways. Like that is almost like a game in and of itself too. Like, there's like different types of like simulation management games where like you do stuff like that as a game, and like people treat that it's kind of like a game. It's just part of the ecosystem. And that makes me believe that sort of no matter what happens, as long as the team is around and functioning and together, and they don't have to cut out a bunch of people, we're going to be okay, and we're going to have this. And maybe we're not all gonna be playing this game from our yachts in the Mediterranean, shipping champagne, but
Think for yourself, bro. That's
but
exactly where I'll be.
well, just make sure you invite us then, Darkestnyte. So
I will absolutely do
there
that.
too. But yeah, but that's kind of I think especially since I started to in Jangles, I've talked to you about this a lot recently, where I finally something I've been saying I need to get together is finally get all my other Chaos Legion cards that I have not using and combine them and get them rented and start to do that. And the ones that can rent, they rent for a little bit, and I have some that rent for more and some that don't. But it's a good way to kind of earn some. I'm basically offsetting the cards I rent. Probably rent like 10 cards for Wild. And I'm able to take my from the packs and stuff I've gotten, won or opened up, or rewards cards, rent them out, and I'm kind of offsetting that other rental. So it's kind of all just like balancing out, and it's it's a good part of the ecosystem, and it's interesting and it's fun. So I think to a point maybe it can just be sort of self-sustaining if we don't get this big giant bull run and we're all going to get rich. But if you want to have some assets, rent them out, make a little bit of money. I mean,
Need some money, man.
Cards, yes. Hope that the cards at least keep their value, right? Like, or they go up even a little bit. Then you know what? It's you're not losing money. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
You mentioned something. You caused me to think of something. So, what do you think about the soulbound reward cards?
I mean, that's like a really you'd have to be more specific.
Okay,
I think
I'll be more specific.
Yeah,
So,
gameplay perspective, like ownership, like future asset. What do you think? What do you ask?
So all of it, right? So I mean, it really is all of it, right? So, let me just give you a perspective how I feel about it, and then
let me hear that.
Translate. So I absolutely love soulbound reward cards, right? I think one, just from the quality of the cards, they're super powerful, right? I mean, we talked about one earlier, right? Barrick's Snake Eye. I think for the amount of time and investment and winning, right? You get rewards for actually winning. Those cards will be with you forever until they unlock them. So one of the challenges I've always had is selling cards, right? Because it's difficult to sell an asset that you're actually using, right? To get more assets. And so, if I decide to sell out, right, which would take a lot for me to do that, but let's just say I sell out of the game, I'm now out of the game, right? I'm out of it. I can't get any more assets. I have to basically repurchase what I've already sold, which doesn't seem to be a winning strategy. But with the soulbound reward cards, I'm always going to owe them. They're locked to my account. So I'm getting them as rewards. And if I build this collection of excellent assets, which I think they are, even if I sell every one of my sellable cards, I'm still able to be pretty competitive in using these cards. And I've seen, I've started using them in my in the current meta, right? And they're very, very effective. You mentioned, Martyr. We have, weapons training. We have some abilities. We have the ability to use with some of the summoners, the ability to use gladiator cards, right? Which we already know are overpowered, right? So I just feel like they represent an opportunity to make sure that me as a player in the game am always tied into the game, right? Until they allow us to unlock them. But I'll be honest, man, I don't think they should ever do that, right? I think they should be tied to my account. I earn them. They're the ultimate flex. And I'm just pleased at so many different aspects that they can touch. And here's the thing. If I max out cards, then guess what? I take what's left and put them on land. Right. So there's so many opportunities for so much goodness with soulbound reward cards. And I think people don't understand or realize the value that they can actually play in the future. So now in that context, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree with a lot of that. When they first announced it, I thought, okay, this will be interesting. Let's see how this goes. And then yeah, the cards look great. I think that was what was that my last episode where we went through like every soulbound reward card and then talked about it and talked about how we use it. Yeah, go if you
It
didn't hear
was,
that
yeah.
one, go back to that one. It was definitely like we did a good. I think we did what like 3 hours of like deep
Yeah.
dive into that stuff. So yeah, and I think it's and I think you guys have mentioned this on the pod. Jangles and Wasco have talked about it a lot before that, where it's makes getting rewards chests on your daily basis so much more interesting because the reward card, as soon as they came out, within like 2 weeks of them coming out, you could get a max copy for a couple bucks, and
Yep.
basically anyone. And it was good from perspective where like any league, if you could afford to be in the league you were in, you could afford to just buy the reward card, and then you're earning an asset that's it's not really worth all that much to you because it's some of the stuff is a penny a card, and
Yeah.
and you just get it. You like you said, I want it now, right? Like I want my rewards cards. I want it now. I don't want to have to wait till I can build them up and level them up over a period of time. Um, and to me, that has been actually the most interesting part about it. The most intriguing thing to me as a player is kind of seeing how like, all right, I've got this card now, at level 1, 2, 3 for a common, I'm probably not going to play it in gold. Once I start to get to like 5 or 6 and starts to unlock those other abilities, now I'm taking a look at it and I'm saying, can I work this into my deck, and where should I work it in and how? And you don't have it all at once, and it's sort of created a different, and that's what I like of the game is, it's a puzzle, it's strategy, and your strategy is constantly being able to kind of adapt. You're adding new information into your matrix you got to figure out on a weekly basis because you're getting those cards at higher and higher levels now, and now you're starting to see it, or you're starting to see other people have them, and you're starting to get beat by them, and you're like, oh crap, I can't like match that play, right? Because I don't have that. I haven't gotten that card yet. I'm not the one that's gotten it. What's the legendary water that has the weapons training and it's the opportunity and
The Mind Hunter.
Mine Hunter? Yeah, like so I haven't gotten that. That's like the one of the ones I haven't gotten yet, and I'm starting to come up against it more and more, and it's frustrating. But that's a good thing, right? Like I like that it's okay to be frustrated. It makes it's an interest. It means the game is interesting. So from that perspective, that has been like the biggest positive I didn't think about is being able to like your deck kind of constantly evolving now and adapting, and it's not just like all right, new rewards cards come out in 2 weeks. Everybody's going to have all the good ones. Nobody's going to care about the bad ones, and you're going to see the same lineups all the time. And like I said, like there's diversity. Like I might have I've got my dry bone raider up to level 3 already, and I might play that card 4 or 5 times a day. It's a and so that, and someone else might not have it, or might only have it at a level 1, and maybe it doesn't have the shatter yet or something, which is really helps it out. So yeah, it's opened up more kind of variance in the game, which I think helps keep it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
that progression, right? we all have played video games, I'm sure, for years, right? And it's that sense of progression that says, if I take this action, if I win this battle, I get something great that will help me go forward, right? And be more competitive. It's a thing that we all expect. And I think this is the first time where you just can't go out and buy it, right? We saw the same thing with gladiator cards, right? And now we've combined the two. So like I remember when I got Quora and I was like, man, this card really seems really strong. Like I'm glad I can't play it in, like no one can use it in the normal meta. And then lo and behold, here we go. Now we're seeing Quora appear in normal ranked matches. And I'm like,
With
oh
martyrs
no,
stacked around her, yeah.
right. Well, I'm sure hope nobody comes in with a level 3 core which has immunity. Oh, and there it is.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting, right? You're being rewarded for participating in just playing the game, right? Regardless of what you think the reward should be, right? I want it now. You're rewarded for continuing through this grind, if you will, and you'll come out of the other side of it with some really good cards that not a lot of people are going to have. A year from now, when this set is out of here, and there's a new set, right? You have what you have. And I think that's going to really show the true players and the OGs from, from the new players for real.
Mm. Yeah, the soulbound cards I've slowly started to see. So I think legendaries are the first that I started seeing, and with the exception of the handful of martyr guys where they're useful at level 1, but the legendaries, and there's a couple of rares like the War Pegasus, the flying life card that offers shatter. That guy, yeah, there's a handful of cards that make immediate impact in a really significant way. But the legendaries, like I've started running into level 4 mine hunters. I've seen a handful of Iziar maxed out, which is a really, really great card for life. He's the taunt guy with void plus martyr, and then life already has a really strong resurrect team. So being able to target all of that damage towards the taunt and leverage that for the martyr, yeah, there's just some really great cards. And while you guys have been talking about this, Hep, I've been thinking about what you mentioned about kind of offering abilities as part of an era. That's such a cool aspect that I think would really, really shift the dial for the value of these overall cards. And I think that was part of Matt's thought process when he was kind of going through the creation period of these soulbound reward cards. Is guys that come in a year from now, they're going to face off with these players who have these unattainable soulbound cards as kind of a sign of the times. Well, how do we take that to the next level? Well, Martyr is specific to like this soulbound reward first set plus Rebellion, and then it's I think we have seen that to some extent. I think Agor. Longtail, yeah, he really, and I said this when he first was dropped, he really reminds me of an old school dragon card because he's got the self heal. We don't see the self heal in a whole lot of, I think there's Bacteria, and
I'll take him over any of those older dragons. I would absolutely take him over any of the older dragons. I think he's the best dragon card we've ever seen. To be
even better than Gold Dragon, really?
Yeah. I mean,
because of the taunt
and the void armor.
Yeah, it's good.
The void armor to me is what makes it, and it's the cards. I mean, and they have kind of done things to nerf him, even with Immortalis out, and and with the Fury rule set. But yeah, I mean, I still play that card a lot and have a lot of success with it, and that's what I'm saying. Like now, and I'm like when I get now that there's certain rewards cards that I'm soulbound rewards cards that I'm, especially the swamp splitter, the turtle guy, the Ninja Turtle, who's got the giant killer and the repair. Like, yes. Oh man, love playing that with Igor because then he's back there, he's doing some repair. You can get repair. Medallion Guardian, so even if you get affliction on them, you're still getting their shield repaired, and so for me, sorry, I don't want to jump in, but I love that card. I play it probably way too much. So
Agor is excellent and I like to combine him with Diamond Dragon, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the cleanse, right? So it's self-heal. The big thing that can really wear it out is affliction, which is one of my favorite abilities, right? But as long as you can get that cleared out, it will heal up really well, and it's really hard to do a lot of damage with the void armor. So
yeah, and he's got the 2. I mean, because you look at he's got the 2 attacks too. So if people are trying to go after with some silence, going after you, or lowering your melee, like you're kind of being able to take them on from both sides. You can play him in melee only matches, and you got a magic guy. You can play him in magic only matches. You got a melee in there. Like it works. If you have the mana for it, it works so well in so many rule sets.
Now looking up a gold version of it.
Oh boy!
Here we go. Let's go.
The FOMO tables have been turned.
Yup. Because I mean, it is a great card, and I don't have a gold version of it. It's too expensive.
It's expensive,
yeah, it's super expensive. So, but one day, you never know. If the prices drop anymore, maybe I won't pick it up.
Yeah, it's interesting, being having watched the gold foil market specifically since the land white paper dropped.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like, especially since we know that soulbound reward cards will at some point be unlockable, we have a pretty good idea of what is the floor going to be for these legendary gold foils that you're pulling. $60 per BCX is pretty much the standard. And depending on the strength of the card, like a Kulu Mastermind, for example, that guy, I would be shocked if he was going for as low as $60. But yeah, I'm curious, and we've been talking about this in the guild a little bit, and I've seen Tails. Shout out to Tails. I think he offered a pretty solid question, got in his mind, and I share his sentiment on it. He got an unsatisfactory response during the town hall asking about the soulbound reward card drop rates, and he did some investigation, and sure enough, investigator, shout out to him as well. He shared with Tails that it kind of slipped through the radar or under the radar, I should say, that the drop rates were amended at the beginning of April, which coincides with me starting to pull my hair out. Like I've gone 3 seasons and I haven't gotten a legendary gold foil after having gotten, a big significant stack of them in the first couple of months of the new soulbound reward cards. How have you guys been feeling with the drop rates? Have you guys been affected by
see the smile on my face? You see the smile on my face, right?
I feel like it could go one of two ways, Darkestnyte. Tell me what's been happening.
Straight up. So when you combined the ECR rate change, I called 2 people. I called Aftersam and I called Walking Keys, and I said, man, we are on a timer. There's no way that they're going to allow these drop rates to be what they're being. And when I broke it down to them, what my drop rate was compared with the ECR change, they were shocked at how many soulbound reward cards I was getting. And I said, I'm going to tell you now, you have 3 weeks, 4 weeks at the most before this has changed. And I said, I didn't even need to check, right? I knew, just as someone that's been in IT for a while, and just understanding how the rewards need to be distributed, there's no way they were going to allow that to continue. And almost to the day we got the change, and even I saw the change, right? I was like, oh well, they've made the change, and at that point I slowed down in my ECR purchase, right? Because I knew that I had, I was at a race against time, and if they met every expectation in terms of changes. And so I slowed down on my ECR purchases, and because I felt like I'll get what I'm now going to get. But during that period, it was out of control. It was fantastic. And even looking back, I felt like I benefited significantly from it.
Well,
I can't sell the cards, right? I can't sell them, but I would if I could.
not yet. I think it was, as a player, it's frustrating because I'm on the cusp of like maxing out a couple of cards, but for the greater of the game, it was the right call. They had to pump the brakes on that stuff because, I would hop into my guild chat and every single day somebody was posting, ooh, I just landed 3 gold foil of Kulu Mastermind. Ooh, I just landed 3 gold foil Drybone Raider. And it's been crickets the last month. It's very far and few between that somebody pops one, but that's how it should be, right? And I think there is the saving grace. There is oftentimes you're not just getting one BCX, right? When that treasure trove does come your way, it's usually multiple copies, and it does make a significant difference to your deck immediately.
Here's what I have seen over and over and over with Splinterlands is you can't take your eye off the ball, right? You have to be involved in the community. You have to pay attention because there are opportunities, right? I think Infidel talks about this a lot, right? Like you have to recognize when you're in the opportunity cycle and take full advantage of it, because that opportunity will eventually go away. And so I've really used that advice from him specifically, right? that says, is this excessive, right? How do I feel about getting all these rewards? And if the answer is, I feel really good about the rewards I'm getting, I know that it's short-lived, right? I know that there's going to be a change because I shouldn't feel this good about getting all these rewards, right? That's
consistently.
consistently.
Yes.
That's the thing, right? Am I consistently getting these rewards? And I'm like, no, I am consistently getting them, and I feel really good about it, and I feel like I'm getting my money's worth or my time's worth. That's a sure sign that this is a very short-lived thing. And so now I know the timer has started. How long before the realization that this is too much and a change actually occurs?
Mm.
Right? And again, it's not negative about the team, right? Like they're doing regular balancing. They should do that, right? But I'm a consumer, right? And my job is to get more than my fair share, and if I can, right? But it starts with recognition that a change is coming. And like this one was perfection, right? It was absolutely perfection. The next one, I think, will be around ECR, right? I think they're going to limit the purchase of ECR. It's only a matter of time. So now I'm self-regulating, right? It's like, okay, I mean, I know this is going to not last much longer, but until it does, how much do I really, what's normal? What feels really good for me? And that's kind of where I am. So I'll toss it over.
Yeah, just real quickly, do you really feel like the current energy system allows for an exploit given the nerf on the card drop? I would completely, I think it had to be card drop rates or the energy adjustment. One of the two needed to happen. But now it feels like the juice for for champ, for example, it's 500 DEC per energy, which is it's not cheap. Yeah, it's not cheap. And before, I would say 100% it's worth it when you're getting these sorts of high drop rates for big value cards. But now, like I've pumped the brakes on buying additional energy. It's just not, the juice is not worth the squeeze.
You're dead on. You're dead on, right? So that's one of the reasons why I slowed down with purchasing ECR, right? It was worth it, and I could tell immediately when it wasn't, right? So now it went back to, from rewards. Now I'm back to the accomplishment of a goal, which is hitting, double champ one, right? That's more important to me than the actual rewards. But the good news is I was able to get, I'm close, right? I'm close to maxing out a lot of legendary cards. I feel satisfied with what I've gotten. I would love it for that train to continue, but I don't, it's the train that ship has already sailed, right? So now what's the next thing?
Yep. Any thoughts, sir?
So, I've noticed no difference. I don't know if the adjustment was just for maybe in champ, but I mean, I had no go for legendary drops in any of my in the season diamond chests or my daily gold chests, and before the change, I've had none since the change. So, not too much of an effect on me. I don't know if and I remember hearing about that too, and I was like, I had no idea they were even talking about they were doing that. So I don't know if that was just a nerf for the rates in champion or diamond and champion, or exactly what it was, but.
Yeah, I would even go as far as to question. So my understanding of the tech update from Investigator was bringing the drop rates to the original table that Matt had devised in terms of this is what you'll be able to achieve per chest per day or per drop, and it should be 33% of your chest chance is going to be a card. I would say that maybe it's just a string of poor RNG, and I've been using all my RNG to whoop Darkestnyte on challenges, but I would be really surprised if I was still achieving that 33% even. It feels like most of my stuff has been merits or SPS or potions. Yeah.
So for me, it feels about 25%, right? That's what it feels like. But I think when I get a card, my multiplier is the same, right? So when I get and again, I could be wrong, right? But I just looked at my rewards I just got for yesterday, right? One card was an epic, right? But it was only one, right? It wasn't multiple. and I haven't gotten a legendary multiple in a while. Right. So again, it just seems like a difficulty in terms of coding that up, right? That's much more difficult to do that, to restrict it that way than just changing it across the board, right? So it feels a lot more inconsistent.
Mm.
But again, I mean, do I feel like they've taken something away from me? A little bit, but do I still feel pissed about it? Not really. Right. I knew it was coming, right? It couldn't sustain what it was. And we were going to burn through all those cards. And we're not due to have another expansion for this, like for another year, right? So what happens when you burn through all the cards? Right.
Well,
Like
it
this
also,
is yeah.
yeah, I was just going to say it also feels like, despite the poor RNG that we've been getting, I think, it's safe to say both of us feel that we're under that 33% card drop rate. When it rains, it pours. I feel like Splinterlands is one of those games where you just have one season where all of a sudden the majority of your chests are dropping cards, and that kind of balances out the previous couple of seasons for subpar rewards. But yeah, you just brought something up that I definitely want to touch on, is something else that came out from Town Hall. Aggie kind of for the first time acknowledged that Rebellion more than likely isn't going to come out till the market turns. And who's to say when that's going to be? But I think for most of us listening, that's at least the better part of another year away. What were you? How did you guys react to that? Hep, let's start with you, man. What did you think?
I can't say I was surprised. I can't say I was upset, and I can't say I think it's a bad idea, I guess. It's,
you can't say a whole lot then, Hep.
Yeah, I can't. I guess I could say the opposite of those things. I know that maybe that's not everybody's sentiment, but to me, it's yeah, it's great. We want to have new cards, and it's great to have new cards to play with, and have the game change. But there's a point where I think there was a point there, where it was sort of, it was overwhelming. It was very overwhelming with, especially around the time when like Rooney was coming out and Lux Vega was coming out and Tower Defense was coming out and GLG, and it just became like, it just seemed like to be like way too much stuff to buy, to wrap your head around. And it seems like it's a bit longer than you would like, but maybe it's for the best interest of the game. I mean, they found ways to keep the game fresh and keep it changing, by adding new rule sets, and just changing different stuff. I think they'll find ways to change things around, and I think they'll, through land and stuff, I think that'll kind of freshen it up, in that time frame. And like, who knows, maybe when land comes out, the cards on the market get really scarce, and the rental market and even the purchase get really scarce, and maybe they'll revisit that at that point, right? If there's the community, if the community starts clamoring for more cards, like we need more cards, we're in a situation where we need cards, I think they probably have the work done in Rebellion to be able to push that and get that out. So I think it's, it could happen. It could be a shorter time frame, but it's interesting because like everybody said, for long, like, oh, we Chaos Legion, we have too many cards, and everybody's super upset. We got too many cards. The value of my cards isn't going up. Wow, 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 wow. Like all this stuff. And so if like, fine, okay, so don't give us new cards for a long time, and then see how you like that. If that's what people care about, and want to make noise about, then I think they should be happy about that announcement. And I think they'll find ways to still keep the game enjoyable and fresh without new cards. And if it starts to get stale, or the sentiment changes that we need, more cards, or the Rebellion needs to come out, I think they'll push it out. What do you think, Darkestnyte?
So I'm good with that, right?
Yeah.
So I made an investment in Chaos Legion. I maxed out my set there. I made an investment in Rift Watchers. I made an investment in Untamed and Dice and all those things, right? And I love the flexibility of being able to go back and forth between Wild and Modern, right? And the fact is that not having Kitty rotate out of modern for as long as possible, when I've made the investment to do that, that's a thing, man. I want to keep Kitty in modern as long as possible, right? And so to maximize that investment and being competitive, right? I have an advantage over people that don't have Kitty. Now, Lily is a great card, right? I can't deny that, right? And she beats, or it beats, Kitty quite often, right? And even some of the other cards that you Lux, right, beats Kitty pretty regularly, right? So it's a combination of all the cards, and the fact is I have a lot of those combinations of cards. I want to maximize that investment as long as I can. But there's always something to be said for a new meta that will come out. I like, Hep's idea about having certain abilities that define a specific era of cards. I think that would be fantastic, right? Hey, you weren't around when Martyr was rocking and rolling, and guess what? You missed out because you weren't here. I'm okay with that, right? Other card games do it, so I'm okay with that here. So no, I'm good with it being delayed as long as possible. I think it's kind of selfish for me, but the reality is there's some benefit for people that have made the actual investment, and I think they should be rewarded for that.
Yeah, I think I mentioned to Hep in our group chat that I felt relief knowing that we had that much more time between now and Rebellion. And if Aggie had told us that a few months ago, I think people would be up in arms. But it's been pretty, as far as I know, it's been pretty quiet in terms of the response to that. So credit to Aggie for listening to the community. I think everybody's tapped out, and you mentioned right after Splinterfest, we had Rooney, we had Lux Vega, and then we had the proposal to start burning Chaos Legion. So those legendary summoner drops started coming fast and furious. We went pretty much Q1, Q2, Q3 with 3 legendary airdrops. And then Q4, Q1, we went through 8, 7, something like that. Maybe my numbers are off there, but we went through a ton in a very short amount of time. And then we had Archimus, and then we had Vruz, and now we have Zirio. So there's cards that have been able to satisfy that itch for new cards to shift the meta. And then to Hep's earlier point of the constant adaptation of these soulbound reward cards, we haven't seen the full extent of what these cards can bring to the meta. So, what we're playing with now is going to be a very different meta from 6 months from now, when everybody's kind of creeping closer to max level. And I think something else that we haven't talked about is the potential mini set that is still, as far as I know, it's still very much in talks for potentially dropping this summer.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we have things that are in the pipeline, but really, again, I think the reality of soulbound reward cards, that was a set in and of itself, right? It really was, that you had to earn. And if things start to get stale, I have no doubt that the team will say, you know what? It's time to add to the soulbound reward cards and shake things up a little bit and add new abilities and things like that. But we still haven't even seen the combinations, the meta-defining combinations yet. So I would say right now, if I were players, especially new players, accumulate cards, right? I started a brand new account 2 weeks ago, and that card has soulbound reward cards, and it's starting to use them, right? Like when I assign it to a bot, it uses them, right? I mean, again, it's a silver account, right? But those cards are super powerful. You get lots of them. You get enough of them after a couple of weeks, and you can be competitive in the tier that you're playing at, right? And it's fun, right? Those are fun cards to play with. So I think all the right things are happening. I never really cared about Rebellion. I mean, I know that I'm going to buy it. I know it's going to cost, probably a few $1,000s to max it out. I'd rather go on vacation this year, right? Instead of buying Splinterlands cards. They'll be nice.
Well, something to look forward to, man. Don't hold your breath.
Taiwan, man.
Bring it on, man. Come on over. We'd love to have you.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
You can meet Aftersat and I in Philippines because we're going.
Oh, when are you guys going? That's awesome.
Soon, sometime soon, we're going.
Oh, keep me posted, man. Yeah, there's a local airline, Cebu Pacific, that offers, and I think I looked it up after we had Mango Mayhem on, I guess 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I looked it up after our podcast, and I think round trip is like $150 from here to there. It's dirt cheap, and I think the Philippines has been particularly struggling post COVID to kind of regrow its tourism industry. So I think those promotions are going to be coming fast and furious, and especially come summertime. So yeah, let me know, man.
I definitely want to do that. And again, the Philippines, I think, is like number 2 for crypto gaming. They're a large percentage of the client base or the players are from the Philippines, right? We have tons of Filipino players in our guild. They have been super, super supportive. And, I would have loved to have seen, Splinterfest continue and the next time for it to be in Manila, right? So that would have been absolutely fantastic. So, but, I think if we go there and, we'll put on a little event and a little tournament and just have fun with it, right?
Awesome.
And again, we talked about this earlier, right? I feel like we, as a content creators, we're the ones that are really carrying this torch a lot. And that's part of it, right? That we want to, let everyone know the community is still here, even though we may be a little bit, a little salty, right? We don't have to be salty if we don't want to, because I think the products are pretty good.
Cool. I love it, man. If you guys, I think we kind of wrapped up the last episode, Darkestnyte, talking about, what if we organize our own Splinterfest and getting the support from the team. If you guys were going to take the initiative to hop on a plane and fly to the Philippines, I think you would more than likely see an influx of players from the likes of Japan. From, I think Waskell and I would go, and we've got a big cohort of players down in Australia that would probably make the trip. It's a nice centrally located position for the kind of greater APAC region. So yeah. I'd love to see it happen, man.
Yeah. So we're going to do After Dark Fest, right? So we're going to start in Chicago, right? So we're doing that. I think it's August. So After Santa's working on the date. And then next after that, it's going to be Atlanta, where I am, right? So people didn't want to come here because it's kind of hot here, but I'm like, be outside, man. So nobody goes outside. We're going to be nice air conditioning. But the reality is we already know that that's going to be fairly successful, right? We already have people that are committed. Hell, people want to come hang out at my house just because. So I think, the Philippines is absolutely going to be an option. I've always wanted to go there. I'm a diver, right? So go there, get some diving in, who knows, might find a new wife.
There you go.
So don't know. So, but it's, I'm looking forward to it, right? I think we're all still kind of recovery from the pandemic, right? I think just to remember that we are a global society, right? That we should, re-engage where we can. And I think this is a great way to do it. So, Oh, I'm sorry.
Excellent.
I got all touchy-feely there. So.
Cheers to that, Darkestnyte. You're absolutely right, man. So here in Taiwan, we're still reeling from COVID stuff. I'm involved with an experimental school here, and we've got about half the kids that still come in masked up, and parents will, ask questions about the mask. And, the government and the media here in Taiwan did a really good job of instilling the fear of God into the people for what COVID could do to the community here. So it's going to be a long road to recovery, to full recovery. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see, kids, my heart goes out to the younger generation where, the last 3 years of their life, which is, at this point in their life is the majority of their life, all they know is seeing people with masks. Yeah. So no, your touchy-feely sentiment is not lost on me, man. That strikes home in a big way.
I would love to just wrap all these kids in a big hug and just say, hey, it's going to be okay. You know, yeah, it was tough, but you got through it, and let's go have fun, right? Let's go outside and play.
Yeah, that's a big feeling. I think a lot of these kids could use over here, and that's certainly what we're trying to do with the school I'm a part of. But real quickly, Darkestnyte, tell us about After Dark, man. This touring Splinterlands festival. I want to hear about this, man. What's up your sleeves, dude?
So really, it's just what we said. So After Sound's big deal is he wants to create tournaments, right? So we've had problems with bots. Let's be honest, right? Bots in tournaments and such like that. But his goal is to really create Splinterlands celebrities, right? When we were at, Splinterfest, we got to see some of the best players in the game, right? D-Tough, #1 game, he won, we got Virus, we got all these guys, Stever, right? These guys all placed top 16. And the people that were normally #1 in tournaments, right? Nowhere to be seen, right? Because they've been botting, right? But the reality is these guys proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are the best players in the game. And so the goal is to promote more of that, right? To bring in investment in the game, to get some sponsors, right? I think that getting real sponsors from real companies is a bit restricted because the bots, right? You want to know that you're having human on human competition, and the bots don't do that, right? Playing as Aftersound says, playing against IBM Watson is not fun to watch, right? So, but the reality is we had a ball when we were in Splinterfest, and like the cheers, right? Just even when we do our tournaments on the weekend, right? We know that we're playing against people we know. The excitement is there, right? It's like watching a sporting event. And we're trying to do that for Splinterlands, right? So going to a live venue and knowing that you're playing against real live people for real stakes, right, is think that that's something that adds to the excitement. Like when we do the tournaments on the weekends, I mean, you're there too, right? We're having a lot of fun, right? Like we're excited and we're engaged and we're predicting what's going to happen, and we're wrong, we're like, oh, I totally missed that, but when we're right, we cheer. Like all of that is excitement, right? And it's not just for Splinterlands, it happens in lots of other games, right? We look at StarCraft, right? They still play StarCraft in Korea, right? League of Legends, all that stuff. Splinterlands should be just like that. And so we, again, we invest our time and in some cases resources, but the goal is to keep hope alive, basically, right? To keep this thing going until we hit the bull market. But we, we have to take it on ourselves to kind of continue to promote the community. You guys do the same thing, right? By doing this podcast, you're promoting communication within the community. And that's a good thing, right? It keeps the excitement going, and I think that's important. So that's really the foundation of After Dark Fest, right? Like just getting the community together, remembering what it was like during Splinterfest, and just rekindling that and keeping that feeling going.
I want a T-shirt first and foremost.
Absolutely, dude.
I expect some pretty cool logo and branding, and oh yeah, I want the full deal. I'll pay for post, bro.
You want a shirt too, man?
Dude, I might come. Let me know, man. Keep me posted. I'm in DC, so
dude, you have to go. You
are pretty easy flights for me. So yeah.
So I tell you what, you swing through, you pick up Gank, and then you guys head on over to Chicago.
Where's Gank? Where is he?
West Virginia.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, and he doesn't get on planes, so you pick him up.
Oh, so I gotta pick him from drive.
You gotta pick him up, man. Road trip, bro. So yeah, and I mean, but it's interesting. I will say this, right? Like the community for us is super strong. Like this game, I mean, I'll be honest, man. Like, and again, more touchy-feely stuff. I apologize, but when I discovered Splinterlands, it was right at the beginning of COVID, right? Like, so I spent a lot of time invested in this game. It was 6 months before I even realized there was a community there. I just played this game, right, because I had nothing else basically to do. But the friendships that I've made, sometimes that's worth way more than the price of the cards, winning the assets. I talk to like Walking Keys and Aftersound every day, right? And we talk about all kinds of stuff, like books and sci-fi and AI and technology, and conspiracy theories, like you name it, we talk about it, right? Even you and I, you're literally on the other side of the planet. I feel like I talk to you or interact with you quite a bit. So those are the connections really that I think that are really bigger than the game, right? If the game were to, and I ask Aftersound this all the time, right? When we talk about investments, right? I go, man, if Splinterlands was to go away tomorrow, like, would we like talk as much as we do? And he was like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Of course we would, right? Because we've transcended the actual game, right? The game is just something we do that we have in common, but there are so many other things in common, right? And if you just look at the long list of names that we always talk about, right? Like, those are people we've interacted with, and it's been awesome. So anyway,
I love it, man.
So that's what Splinter, the After Dark Fest is all about. Is just bringing people together, just to enjoy each other's company, to share something we all feel very passionate about. And again, it's not to make money, right? Because we can do that to buy Ethereum, right, and hold on to it for a couple of years. But the reality is, it's the people in this community that are bigger and better than all the other stuff. So I'm going to stop talking for a while.
I agree.
Enjoy my bourbon, and so that's all you from here on out, man.
I mean, we've talked about it before. I think that the fabric of this podcast has we kind of laid it out at the beginning that we wanted to focus on the community, focus on the people, focus on the individual story that we had onto the show. And as time has gone by, that's really. It's been the very natural common thread. Like, we haven't had to push and pry for community driven conversation. It's just, that's what attracts us to this game. And I've met some very good buddies. I consider both of you guys my amigos that we've met through Splinterlands. And I'm sure we all have our own respective lists of folks that we've met, and the friendship is there, and it's real. Despite I see you guys through Zoom, and we communicate on Discord, and then we drop the friendship for a couple of challenges and battles, and then it's right back to friendship. Yeah. So yeah, your sentiment's not lost on me, man. I really appreciate what the Splinterlands community has brought. And if you can steer clear of, there's enough salt for everybody, if you seek it out. But if you manage to evade the salt mines that are kind of scattered throughout Discord and sometimes on YouTube, sometimes on Twitter, it's for the most part, it's a great place to kind of take a break from the real world stuff and come have a good time with some virtual buddies and play a great game.
Yeah, I never go into map chat, if that's what you're referring to. Like, I never ever go in there, right? Like, if I need to get information that might be in map chat, I'll call one of my buddies and say, man, I need the filtered version. I don't need the excitement. I don't need the drama. I don't need to know who's pissed about what. Just tell me what I need to know. And it's great, right? But there's a place for the drama in Mav, right? That's the place where passion goes, right? And there are people there that are willing to engage and fight for what they believe, and that's a good thing too. I'm not saying that Mav, the Mav channel in Discord is bad. It's just not for me, right? My relationship with the game is very different. So, but if you see me in Mav chat really pissed off, something happened.
Well, I think it's unfair to lump all of Mav chat into the salt mines, but
yeah.
To your credit and to what you're saying, we've had a lot of really positive developments for the game that have stemmed from those Mav chat conversations. So for as much sour stuff that is spouted in there. There's some sweetness in there also that does deliver some positive goods on the development side.
Yep, absolutely, dude.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say, one thing that recently, so Darkestnyte, I'm in Phoenix Risen as my guild, and we're kind of in the Phoenix Arcade umbrella.
Yep,
I don't know if you know any of those guys.
I do.
Yeah, okay, great. So we actually had like one or two newer players join one of the guilds. I think they've been talking more in the all guild chat. And it's great because they've kind of been like asking for help and like asking what they should do in different rule sets and stuff. And it's just been, I think people have, and that's what I love to talk about that stuff like all the time. Like anytime anybody wants to have a conversation with me about it, we can talk for an hour about one specific rule set. But to me, and like that's what I was looking for when I like first joined, is like I just want because can be a confusing game at first. Like you said, you played for 6 months, had no idea what was going on. Like I was trying to find any answers to anything, and the guild was really the place that I found help with people being like, here, try this, do this. This is how you can play this card. And we've kind of gotten some newer people in, and it's been really refreshing because it's a lot of our energy has been focused there with trying to help people, and that's been super positive. And yeah, so I feel like if you're feeling salty about the game or stuff that's going on, just try to find someone to talk about that stuff with, or talk about a newer player to mentor. Even if you're focused more on the DeFi aspect of it, be like, hey, these are good cards you can get, and this is how you rent them out, or you can rent cards and do this instead of just buying cards. And go into your guilds, and if new players out there listening to this, like don't be afraid to go into your all guild chat and ask these questions, because this is stuff that I think is the most positive stuff about the game, is just being able to kind of like help other people grow like that. So I think that's where people should focus.
You just made me think of something. I wish that maybe when I first started, there was a banner that just said, hey, you have any questions about Splinterlands? Go to YouTube and just search on Splinterlands, right? And there's tons of content out there. I never looked, right? For 6 months, I never looked at any Splinterlands content on YouTube. It didn't dawn on me, right? And to your point, right? You and your guild love, like you mentor, right? And that was a thing that was missing. I needed a mentor. I probably would have made very different decisions back when cards were super cheap. And I probably would have bought a lot more of the more critical cards, right? I got bought random cards. Like I bought an alpha card just because I like the picture, right?
Yeah.
But I probably would have picked a different alpha card, or maybe bought something else, right? And someone could have said, hey, I would recommend, if you have, $30 to spend and you're about to buy this card, this one is more meta. I had no idea what the meta was, right? And that was still pretty competitive. But to your point, I think we all recognize it at this point, what helping newer players means. I know that Weirdbeard understands it, right? So this game doesn't grow without new players, and the retention of those newer players. So I don't know if you guys saw, I asked Weirdbeard a question while we were live streaming, and I said, how long does a new player need to stay before they are a permanent resident of the community? And do you guys know what that number is?
Only because I think I heard you and Aftersound talking about it. I think it was about 9 or 10 days.
9 days, right? So I stayed obviously, but beyond that 9 days, and so I've been here for 3 years now, right? So knowing that we have 9 days to reach out to a new player and get them introduced to the community where they're a participating member, that's not a lot of time, right? And so what do we as a community, and what does a company do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4? Okay, we're halfway through that engagement period. What do we need to do now to ensure that this person sticks around? And I don't think we think in those terms, right? I think we are missing opportunities, because here's the problem, right? If we don't capture those new players, right, again, to be part of our community, they've already shown an interest and an affinity for Web3 gaming. If they don't find what they're looking for with us, they go somewhere else. And there's only but so much dry powder, right? So they're going to buy what they're going to buy in some other game. Even if they like Splinterlands, that capital is gone, right? Until they get more. And guess what? If you're investing in another game, are you going to continue to invest in that game, or are you going to diversify? I mean, that's a hard choice, right? So my again, we talked a little bit about the the After Dark Fest. That part of that is that engagement, right? Your podcast and engagement, have your mentorship for your guild is part of that engagement. It's part of those 9 days, right? So how do we get enabled by the company or even the community itself to do more outreach like that, right? And retain those players. So I think that's the next stage of what we really all need to be focused on. And we need to do it before the bull run occurs. Because once that euphoria hits, man, people are going to be all over the place, right? Like you will not be able to catch anybody's attention during that time, right? Because there's going to be money everywhere, right? And people are going to be investing everywhere. And Splinterlands might fall by the wayside. So.
Yeah, that 9 days is a little bit of a scary number. That's a very short. You got a teeny tiny runway to lock somebody into. There's a lot of ground to cover in 9 days. Talking about having the mentorship and Darkestnyte, I think you're, one of a very select few to stick with a game despite not knowing, which way is up for 6 months. I was ready to, thinking back to my initial playtime, I was so frustrated. I was coming up against, Yoden and Milo and Llama and Bronze, and I was just banging my head against the wall trying to figure it out. The only reason I stuck around was, I hopped onto YouTube and found somebody like Bulldog, found somebody like Infidel. I think Aftersound had just started kind of streaming consistently Splinterlands stuff. And Waskel, shout out to him. He I think he delegated me my first Oceanus legendary card, and there's a handful of cards that make a significant difference. So I think having that mentorship, having the communication, having the platforms to find the information that you need, how do we tighten up that process and kind of streamline that for those newer players that's a tall task. Maybe all of that stuff can be baked into something like a battle pass where you've got to tick off you've got to tick off some kind of fundamental understanding components of the game before you can proceed to achieving the next sort of thing.
How do you capture struggling players, right? Like that's the thing, right? If someone's getting frustrated, I mean, and I'll say with AI right now, you should easily be able to detect a struggling player, right? You would look at it and say, hey, this person has lost the last 20 games. Well, now it's time to intervene, right? Let's intervene and say, hey, this is your Rooney, right? Like Rooney just pops up on your screen and said, hey, I noticed you lost the last 20 games. Let me just kind of look at why you lost those last 20 games. Like think about that. That would be phenomenal, right? To have somebody say, hey, I noticed this thing about your pattern of play.
I'm picturing Clippy from like Microsoft Word circa 1999.
Yeah, there we go. Exactly. That used to happen. That's right. That used to happen. Yeah. Like, hey, you're trying to import this thing, and let me show you how to do it. Right. Like similar to that, right?
Yeah. I noticed you're not playing your fiend in your first spot. Would you like some help?
Yes. And so it very naturally progresses you into this mode, right, where you're now learning as opposed to struggling, right, and you get some enjoyment. Battle Pass, like to your point, Beach Ankles, like that is I think that could do more to help the community than anything else, right? Or at least retain those new players. So.
Yeah, I think one of the other big shortcomings that comes to my mind is there's a clear divide between Splinterlands.com and all things game communication. Everybody's on Discord. If you're not on Discord, you're living in the dark with this game. And maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see anything on Splinterlands outside of maybe the homepage. There's I think a little icon like join our Discord sort of thing. But it doesn't point you to like all of our communication, in-game player communication takes place on Discord. And I feel like unless you're on Discord, you're missing a big chunk of the pie, which is where, I think a lot of friendships are kind of birthed is in the depths of Discord somewhere. Yeah.
No, I think you're dead on.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Hep?
No more. I think that's it. Yeah, I'm trying to think if, I think I might have like started using Discord specifically because of Splinterlands too. Like I think that was probably like one of my first channels, or that's like the reason why I got it and started to use it more. But yeah. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of stuff they can do for the new player experience. If you even look at basic mobile games, like they always have some sort of like walkthrough or always kind of like guide you to get you to a point where, you've already sunk some time into the game or money or something where you're, further down the road where you understand it better. And, they can then, at least make that decision where do you want to keep playing? Do you want to invest money in this game? Or is this not for you? But it's scary to think that you're missing out on people that you might get because you essentially have nothing, and if it set up some game mode where for the first after you buy a spell book or even before that for the first 2 weeks you play, like if the thing is 9 days, right, give people 2 weeks some way to give them a ghost card deck that has at least silver level cards and let them play in a non-play to earn situation, whether it's against bots that the company runs or just other people kind of in that same situation.
Xbot practice bot.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that.
Yeah.
Like integrate that in. Exactly. Yeah, man. Kind of show people what the game can be. Because that's the scary thing is people are making the decision whether to play or not without knowing like how fun the game could be.
Mm. And I think there's just one last thought on that. I think there's so much lost in bronze is fun. Bronze is fun for a very different reason. It's challenging. It makes me, if I was living and dying in bronze, I would probably not still be here, but playing at the higher levels and having all the abilities and the meta shifts so much is really what keeps me playing the game and really enjoying the game because it's always changing and there's always new abilities coming in. But at bronze, I feel like you're just starting to wet your whistle, and it's not enough. I wonder sometimes to really get people to sink their teeth into the game. So I wonder if it's like, that first 2-week period, that first 10-day period, you get a taste of each league, and this is what you can work towards. You get a full soulbound reward set as your ghost cards, and you kind of progress through the leagues with that. And then, that not only does that teach you the gameplay, it teaches you how the gameplay changes as you progress. And, I find champion and diamond, it's much more competitive. I feel like, and just having all of those abilities adds to the fun factor of the gameplay. So giving somebody who's brand new a sneak peek into what's to come, it kind of sets that, to your earlier point, Darkestnyte, it sets that longer term goal of this is what I want to achieve in the game is competing at the highest levels. So, yeah.
Give them 3 days at each level, right? Now you're at 12 days. You gave yourself a little buffer there, so you're good to go.
Yeah, and you tell them, hey, you're going to have this deck for 3 days, 4 days, whatever it's going to be. Play, right? And maybe even turn off your ECR, right? Just for that first time, right? Just say, hey, we're going to all the restrictions that we have on the game are going to be turned off and go have fun, right? And maybe you do give them rewards, right? Give them a couple of rewards, give them a few soulbound reward cards, right?
Give them some potions.
Yeah, oh yes, so don't give them potions, right? Right? No potions. You give them only soulbound reward cards and again, you give them something, maybe combined with Battle Pass, right? Maybe their first couple of rewards are soulbound reward cards that are summoners, right? They can earn all of the summoners at, that first level. That's good, right? You can't sell it. So you can do it 100 times, right? And you're going to just continue to build up. Maybe they play against bots and they can get earned up to a level 3 or 4 summoner, right? And just being repetitive and playing these bots, right? The bots are fun to play, right? I've learned that now with XBot, right? Playing against someone's bot, someone's collection is a lot of fun.
Good challenge. That's for sure. It makes you think outside the box.
Yeah, you'll get better.
Well, guys, awesome conversation. Is there anything else that we've kind of missed in the last couple of hours that we want to touch on before we start wrapping up?
Yeah, I think this has been good. At least for me, it's been good. I mean, I love talking about Splinterlands, right? So, hey, man, we don't even have to be recorded. You can just call me anytime.
Hey, Darkestnyte, it doesn't sound like you guys have landed on dates or venues or anything for After Sound Chicago?
Yes, we know it's Chicago. We know it's going to be sometime in August, right? I'm traveling now. After Sound is actually headed to Chicago this week, right? So I think one of the things he's going to do is look for venues. I already have one here in Atlanta, right? So I'm thinking that'll maybe be October-ish, right? October, November-ish. I don't believe they're going to do one for the team, right? So they're not going to do their version of Splinterfest. I think they're going to do a digital type of a deal. So the problem for us, really, I'll be honest, right, is we know that we'll say, oh, it's only going to be 50 people, and then like 200 are going to show up. Like, I'm pretty confident of that. So we need to be able to anticipate. And the same thing happened in Vegas, right?
Just rent out Soldier Field, bro.
I could do that.
Play it safe.
Yeah. So I have a perfect spot for it, right? But at the end of the day, I think even the team was surprised at how many people showed up in Vegas, because if they'd had a maxed out amount, it would have been not enough room, right? So I learned a lot. We all learned a lot about that. So we don't want to kind of repeat the past.
Well, look forward to updates. Hopefully there's some sort of online attendee possibility. I'd love to partake as much as I can. I know, time zones are definitely going to play a factor, but yeah, I love what you guys are doing. The weekend tournament series is fun. I'm hoping that After Sound, I mentioned the other day I hopped into the tournament. I got bounced in the first round. Thankfully, that guy, I think I checked the next day, and I think he went to the quarterfinal. So I do find some solace getting trounced by somebody who almost went the distance.
It's tough. It's really tough.
There's some good players in there, man. And I love, we've talked about this before, and I think all of us, Hep, you've mentioned on multiple occasions, and you've sent through battle links for showdowns with you and Ula, who's, he's a great player. Ula Ocean he's a stud in the Splinterlands world. Darkestnyte, I know you've got some adversaries. We run into each other on occasion on ranked, and almost always there's a battle link waiting in Discord for one of us.
Oh, we just did, by the way.
Oh, did we?
Just now, 3 minutes ago.
And you got Victor. Oh, you see my summoner? All right, that's a new one for me.
Oh, I see it. I'm like, look at that.
I rented
but
Kitty.
There's my boy. But there's my boy Almo Cambio, man. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
it's interesting because I have all the same cards that you played. This is a conversation for another time, but I think we both own all of the cards that were played. Yeah. But the XBot played different lineups for both of us. Interesting. Yeah.
Which is very interesting, right? So why? So I'm not using XBot. I'm using XBot, I'm using Archmage.
Ah, well, right. There you go.
So different. So I got to tell you, man, XBot has been on it. So I definitely see a much more expert level of play from them. So that's definitely something for another day.
We'll put a pin in that one and circle back in a couple months on the bot conversation, see where we're at. Absolutely. But Boys, it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed both of y'all's company, and thank you for the touchy-feely sentiments sprinkled throughout Darkest Night. Always a pleasure hanging out with both of you guys. Any final words from either of you?
No, this was fun. This was really good. Yeah, again, can't wait to do it again.
Yep.
Yeah, same. It's great. Darkest Night, great getting to talk to you kind of in person here. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
Because you say in person, right? But like none of us have ever been in person. But it's the new normal for us, right? Like this is it. Like this is the way it is going forward.
Yeah.
So, and I love it.
Yeah. Video chat in real time. I just say that's in person now. It's close.
It is. Like I love it. I absolutely love. I love the new world. So
yeah.
All right, fellas. Well, as always, appreciate you guys for taking the time to hop on. Lots of great insight and cool ideas. Hopefully, some of this stuff is appreciated. I think between the two of you guys shaking the brain bush, some pretty solid ideas fall out, and hopefully some of those sprout some fruit for the future of the game. Yeah. All right. Until next time, you have been listening to People's Guild.